the government is over-promising and promising and nothing is happening. And you see, one other thing is they even want to abuse teachers. They want teachers to contribute money to a pace that is controlled by government officials, that we know that they are very corrupt.
Hello viewers, welcome to the agenda here on UZIM TV. Today I'm joined by Dr Takavafira Zhou. He is the president of Progressive Teachers Union in Zimbabwe. We are here to discuss the plight of teachers, the plight of students. Schools are expected to open soon with the COVID cases dropping, and we haven't heard much from the government in terms of how adequately are they going to address the issues and challenges that are being faced by teachers. Recently we saw the amalgamated rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe members who were arrested and incarcerated because they demonstrated against the current wages they are earning, saying they are being incapacitated to deal with the challenges that are arising as they will be trying to do their work. Dr. Zhou, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me to share ideas.
So maybe before we dive into the real issues, can you appraise us at the state of relations between teachers and government at the moment?
Well, the relations between teachers and government are very sour. The challenge with the government is that it is not taking professional advice, but the government is taking political advice. In short, those who are in authority are not listening to the advice from teachers. In particular, the salaries of teachers are now starvation wages. The conditions of work have been seriously eroded. The education system is led by vandals who are carrying cold and calculated educational vandalism without really having an interest in assisting the students that are the future leaders of the country. And teachers, as managers of the best asset of a country, are ill-treated, they've lost their luster, they've fallen from grace to grace with monotonous regularity. And they are not consulted. Government is using command and control tactics. Yet in the education system, the best educational methods or educational reforms are achieved through a broad consultation in the education system. So realistically, the education system is falling because government is failing to engage the educators and also to promote a conducive environment in schools to ensure that there is meaningful learning and teaching occurring in schools.
Okay, COVID cases are dropping and schools are expected to open soon. There hasn't been much action from the government in terms of addressing your concerns. How do you see this playing out as we try to start afresh? Let me say start afresh, as we try to begin a new term in 2022. I also beg to differ that COVID cases are dropping. We are aware of our government that when they want to do something like opening schools, they would want to find justification for that. But I really wonder that COVID cases are dropping. These are official figures. And we have simply relaxed our testing of our populace in Zimbabwe in order to justify the opening of the schools on the basis of COVID cases. I'll tell you that schools were not closed because of COVID per se. There were several reasons why schools were closed. Fundamentally, there were two reasons that had nothing to do with COVID. One is the issue of space. Remember, if we had opened the schools, it meant that we would have had O-level students as well as A-level students, including 2021 A-level and O-level students still writing in schools. So there was no space in terms of classroom structures, in terms of hostels. In most of these boarding schools, the O and A levels are boarding pupils who need space in the hostels. The hostels were congested, so fundamentally there was no learning and sleeping space in schools. Then the second issue was the issue of salaries of teachers. The salaries of teachers, the teachers are still earning 19,000. While they are earning 19,000, school fees have skyrocketed to about 190,000 to 260,000 in boarding schools, and these are approved by the government. And the government was aware that teachers would be incapacitated. So, realistically, as we focus towards the possible opening of schools between the 7th and the 14th of February, we are worried that all this time schools were closed for non-exam classes. There was no concerted effort in engaging with teachers. And when we meant engagement, the engagement must be through Section 65 of the Constitution, where we have a robust collective bargaining chamber and engagement between the employer and the employees' teacher unions. We have seen the government using its defective Apex Council, calling its praise singers in the Apex Council to discuss issues that are pertinent to the education sector, but discussing those issues with people that have no relevance in the education sector. Taking, for example, a matron, Alexander, to lead a government team to discuss about pertinent issues in the classroom, I think is a misnomer, because she does not even have 5 O-levels. So you cannot take a person, you cannot take a rich person to represent poor people and expect that that rich person can well represent the poor people. So the whole essence is that with a crisis in the education system, the crisis in terms of payment of teachers, their salaries was eroded from US 540 US dollars to about 90 US dollars. So that reduction or cooling of salary was done without any engagement with teachers, without any consent, and all what teachers want is a restoration of their purchasing power parity as at October 2018, where teachers' salaries would be on average US 540. So there's been no engagement with teachers. So that still is a contested issue. If we open schools without addressing the issue of the salaries of teachers, we are likely to see schools opening when they are closed, schools opening when realistically teachers are incapacitated and they are not able to report for work. At the same time, we are not also sure that COVID cases have slackened. If we don't have a process where we test students, teachers, and ancillary staff, and allow people to conglomerate in schools without testing or separating those who may be infected with the virus, COVID virus, we may also see an escalation of COVID cases in schools. We have seen that several students, teachers, there was an escalation of COVID cases when we closed last year, and we need to take appropriate action to ensure that the health and safety of teachers is a priority in the schools. Apart from that, there are also other education-specific, sector-specific allowances we agreed over the past 10 years that have not been implemented. For example, it is insulting to imagine that an HOD would get 10 RTGs, $10 as an allowance of an HOD. It would be insulting also to realize that an A-level allowance for a term is still $10. Even teachers have lost interest of claiming. How do you claim $10? Even the forms that you fill are more than, they cost more than $10. So you can't photocopy that form so that you make claims. Not only that, remember I've said that school fees has gone up as far as 190,000, 260,000, and the teacher is earning 19,000. It will be oxymoronic for a teacher to leave his own child at home and go and teach the rich people's children in schools. When a worker cannot, when children of teachers cannot access the services that the parents are offering, that is still an insult. We agreed over the past 6 years that a teacher must have at least 3 children that must be exempted from paying fees.
But we have not implemented that. So realistically, all these issues, they need to be implemented, including also looking at the curriculum. We have color or continuous assessment learning areas. That is a brilliant issue if it is done properly. The concept of blending theory and practice, so that you equip your students with life-saving skills. You prepare them for life beyond the classroom. But when you overburden them with color, imagine with students at O level doing 12 subjects, and you are required to do 5 tasks in every subject, which implies you are doing about 60 tasks. Those 6 tasks are more than even a master's thesis, if not more than a PhD thesis. So what we really wanted, even before opening of schools, is to streamline the tasks per subject to make them manageable.
Okay.
And if a student...
Maybe to follow up on that, did you try to engage the authorities to say this is what we are thinking and this is what we want to be done?
We have done that. We have done that. We have also submitted papers, written papers, to the effect that color or a task in a subject must be manageable. What we feel is that the quantity is too high.
Okay.
We need to reduce it to about 1 task per subject.
Okay.
The second thing is that the task must also be appropriate to the skill that you want to develop.
Okay.
Imagine if you take even Macheso. Even if your Macheso was a student today, you will fail the music task because you have to write 15 pages in good English. But you don't need a task of writing 15 pages if you want to produce music talent.
Okay.
All what you need is a guitar, and you test a person singing
Yes.
or playing the guitar.
I ask that because as we are also trying to address the challenges the challenges that you are facing, we also need to look at the plight of students, because they are the ones who are being impacted negatively mostly.
Sure.
And I was thinking, like, with the tasks you were saying, there are so many, and then taking time to say schools have been closed for a very long time, and teachers have been complaining that we are being incapacitated to carry out. How do you see this impacting the quality of education in Zimbabwe in the long run?
One, I'm sure you're aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
That you need intrinsic motivation. In whatever you do, even in your work, you need intrinsic motivation. So you can't have motivated teachers that are receiving starvation wages. So what it implies is that their effort is at a minimal. Their innovation and dynamism, particularly in ensuring that they impart life-saving skills or nurture the talent and channel students to their respective areas of speciality, they don't have that time. Most of the time they will be scavenging for food in order to feed their own families. So what we really need is a conducive situation that can lead teachers to develop tasks to ensure that we impart life-saving skills to the students, be it music talent, be it soccer, be it a lot of other talents. Unless we really motivate teachers, I don't think we will manage that. For your own information, 99% of the teachers that we have in Zimbabwean schools have mentally resigned, although they physically remain in the schools, which is a dangerous scenario. So most of them will not even be able to go to school because they're already demotivated.
I was going to follow up on that to
Yes.
say you are the representative of teachers in Zimbabwe, and
Yes.
you engage with them on a daily basis. You do workshops with them to try and find out maybe possible solutions and how they are living. Since the last time schools were closed, you've been conversing with them. Are they willing to go back? In your opinion, are they willing to go back full gear to say schools are open now? Can you go back, resume your duties, and teach children?
I think you must understand one thing. Teachers are willing to go back to school and teach every day, but provided they are capacitated. Because the interest is there. But they don't grow money
You see, the employer must provide them with money so that they can at least go to their workplaces. So we need a balance sheet between what the teachers are getting and then what the teachers can afford to do in terms of going to school. So the whole essence falls on the government that must capacitate teachers. This is the same argument we've been using with the government that has implemented what they call no work, no pay. It's not that teachers do not want to go and work on a daily basis, but it's because the employer has ensured or incapacitated teachers that they can only manage at most 2 days a week and at least a day a week. Even if you look at the salary that they are getting, it's even less than 1/5. So that they can manage to go for at least 2 weeks is a sign of interest, is a sign of enthusiasm of Zimbabwean teachers, because what they are getting is even less than it's about 1/6. Actually, they were supposed to teach half a day for a week. So teachers are willing, but they need to be capacitated.
Okay. Since there seems to be no response from the government whatsoever, it seems to be not bothered about your demands and your concerns and your challenges. What's your plan of action as we are preparing for schools reopening again?
We have made it very clear to the government that they must capacitate teachers. If they don't capacitate teachers, you will still see the continuation of reporting 1 day a week or at most 2 days a week. Because Zimbabwe has the best teachers throughout the world. Look at Zimbabwean teachers. I attended a conference in South Africa where a minister of education was asking headmasters or headmistresses why their schools had not performed very well. I was impressed by one headmistress who said, "How could I perform very well at my school? I don't even have a single Zimbabwean teacher." Imagine, we have our neighbors acknowledging how good Zimbabwean teachers are, but we have a government that does not acknowledge the goodness of Zimbabwean teachers. So we are sick and tired of a minority officials who have attacked the teachers for doing so much with so little. So we have engaged, we have also appealed to the government to ensure that, because it's not a question of money per se. If you look at teachers, there are other issues that could also lessen their burden. We have engaged the government over the provision of land to teachers so that they can also lessen their plight in terms of payment of accommodation, so that in future they would also have shelter above their head. The government is over-promising and promising and nothing is happening. And you see, one other thing is they even want to abuse teachers. They want teachers to contribute money to a pace that is controlled by government officials, that we know that they are very corrupt. There is high-profile corruption. You see, corruption can only be minimized when you minimize the leaders' propensity for corruption. What we want is not someone to control money from teachers. We have done that several times. For example, Chigwedere Gwindingwi housing scheme for teachers. Teachers contributed to the Gwindingwi housing scheme, it never materialized. Even Energy Mtodi also had another housing scheme, and it fleeced the teachers of their hard-earned money. So teachers have learned from this government that all what we want is land. We can service on our own and ensure that our teachers can have a shelter above their head one of the days. So we have even appealed that if you don't have money, provide strength to these teachers. In future, it will be beneficial to them. You can even say, we don't have money for this, but at least if you have a piece of 1,000 acres, you build your own land. The issue that teachers' children must not also pay school fees, that could be a motivating factor. At least those who work at Zima, they don't pay for water bills. Those who work at electricity, they don't pay electricity bills. So if you say, no, at least your 3 children, Joe, can also learn freely in schools, I may be motivated even if I don't have money.
That will even lessen the burden.
Yes, it lessens the burden. And
say you have
yeah,
3 kids,
yes.
you're earning 19,000.
You see?
And you have to pay 100 something thousand.
Which I don't know where to get. See, so those are some of the sector-specific allowances that we feel could also motivate teachers to continue to teach in spite of the bad conditions of service. But one other issue which is very clear is that the economy is dollarized. It is pointless to increase an RTGS, because what it does if you increase an RTGS is that it increases the basic commodities of prices, and ultimately you are worse off than before the increase of the RTGS. So our point is very clear even now. We don't need an increase of our salaries. We don't need an RTGS increase of our salaries. We don't need that. What we need is a restoration of the purchasing power parity of our salary as at October 2018. We want our US 540. So you see, if you talk to government officials, they talk of cost of living adjustment. Who told you that I want a cost of living adjustment? You want to give me a cost of living adjustment that would leave me worse off. The concept of engagement is that we want the restoration of our 540. Okay. So we don't want these praise singers who would claim that they are negotiating on behalf of teachers when in actual fact they are negotiating their own packages. You know, the tragedy of the current system under Statutory Instrument 141 of 1997 is that even the government or civil service leaders, employees leaders, are chosen by the Minister of Public Service. So imagine you have a minister who is choosing a government team to go and negotiate with the with civil servants, and then is also choosing the leaders of the civil service. You see, so there is virtually no negotiation. It's a collective begging process. We don't want that. In terms of laws, the Constitution takes precedent over statutory instruments. And this Constitution came into being in 2013. And you wonder why people are sticking to a statutory instrument 141 of 1997 and not Section 65 of the Constitution. But the whole issue is that is an issue of an attempt to give an impression that there is negotiation when there are no negotiations. It's an attempt of just firefighting, and we are sick and tired of firefighting. We want realistic engagement.
Okay, maybe as we draw close to this session's end, what would you say is maybe the solution to address the challenges by civil servants from the government? What do you think the government really needs to do? Like you were talking about how they select representatives to represent both parties when there is no actual voice of the people on the ground to actually say what they want done and what they feel should be addressed. What would you say?
There are basically about 3 things, if not 4. One is there must be a robust collective bargaining chamber that must be created under Section 65 of the Constitution, where employees and employer can reach an agreement. If you don't reach an agreement, you refer your case for arbitration, and whatever the arbitrator decides becomes the main issue that happens. But we need also more than that. We need to respect ILO Convention 87 and the ILO Convention 98. These are issues to deal with the negotiations that must be binding, in negotiations of equal people, not a negotiation of a horse and a rider or a master and servant. So we need to respect Convention 87, 98, and also to ratify Convention 151 and Convention 154. These deal specifically with government workers. So how you negotiate with government workers and give them their rights and not just determine what government feels is important to them. Then there is one major issue which is important in terms of budget. In terms of African governments' agreements at Dakar, the education budget or the primary and secondary education budget must be 22% of the total budget of the country. Okay. That way you can go a long way. But currently our education budget is 12.7. So it falls far short of our own agreements by African standards. So unless we invest in quality public education, we are not going anywhere. But we are investing in a retention of political power. So we need to invest in quality public education. We also need to invest in engagement. Whatever challenge in society you may have, there is no challenge that can surpass engagement, and broad engagement, and in good trust, and listening to professional advice. You know, if you are dealing with journalists, listen to journalistic ethos, the concept of objectivity and the like. And if you try to gauge the fourth estate, you will not be doing a service to journalism. If you are also dealing with the medical profession, you must listen to professional advice of that group. And when you are dealing with teachers, one, you must have educational taxonomy. The challenge you are dealing with, most of even education officials do not have educational taxonomy. You can look at a lot of Chigwedere, Dokora. You can look at also this one, the recent past Minister of Education, Matema. You see, it's a way where politicians fail to place some of their favored people, and they end up in what? In education, which is unfortunate. You need a person well grounded in educational theory, practice, and the like. Our best ministers, for example, were Zingai Mtumbuka and Fei Chung. And they made independent decisions from politicians based on the best interests or best practices in education.
I feel like there are some sectors in the government that should not be politicized. Something like education, Ministry of Health, those things, they need to be independent so that we get the best services.
Sure.
Dr. Zhou, thank you so much for joining me here on News MTV, The Agenda, and taking us through the challenges that teachers are facing and your plans of action as we prepare for the reopening of schools for the 2022 year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we also feel honored if our plight is amplified, particularly by journalists, so that society is also well aware of the challenges that we are facing, and we remain committed. Although most of teachers have been, they have been pauperized to an extent that they feel that there's virtually everything wrong about the teaching profession. But we hope that one day those who are in leadership will see light and ensure that we restore the education system in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. For more, follow us on our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter for these and more.